We're here today with Julie Flanders, who is not only a dear friend, but is an amazing life coach who is trained in something called neuro-linguistic programming. And it's something that's fascinating to me because through the power of words, we can alter the way that we communicate with ourselves and better empower ourselves to deal with life and life's challenges and just feel better about things. So I think that that's an amazing thing that you do. I'd like to hear more about neuro-linguistic programming and what you do in your work as a life coach.
Well, I mean, it's both neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy, and they are, as you say, very word-based. We say things to ourselves on the inside all the time that if we ever said to another person, we might not have any friends. So a lot of it's about speaking to yourself as if you're your own best friend.
Right. And also, from what I've read about neuro-linguistic programming, you're actually altering the wiring in your brain based on how you talk to yourself.
Well, you know, the basis of neuro-linguistic programming is to think of the brain being something like a computer. So if you imagine that you're reprogramming a computer, what you're doing with words is putting in better software. And then there's other aspects of neuro-linguistic programming which have to do with the whole body and using the whole body better, which includes the brain. So in fact, you are rewiring yourself to function better, to enhance your performance, and basically be happier and more fulfilled.
It's amazing work. Tell me a little bit about how you balance being a mom. I know that you have, is your son a teenager yet?
Yes, he's a teenager. It's a whole new phase.
Right, a whole new phase that you're going through. How do you balance being a mom of a teenage son and a very busy and successful career as a life coach?
Well, actually, you know, each phase of parenting I found required very different balance. And what I tell people is balance requires movement. You don't find a position and fix yourself in it. You have to be willing to move and change and flow. So whereas, you know, with a 4 or a 5-year-old, you might have separation anxiety to deal with. With a teenager, you're often dealing with the opposite, which is they may go away for 3 or 4 days and forget to call you.
Right. So it's a whole different set of issues that comes up.
Yes, and I feel like for parents, knowing that where you are is where you are and accepting it without thinking it can be perfect or that it should be perfect. Parenting is about tolerating your own mistakes, I think.
Right, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about too. So how would we use a technology like neuro-linguistic programming or like some of the other therapies that you use, because I know you're trained in a number of these different types of therapies, to empower ourselves to be a little forgiving and to accept that we can't be perfect all the time as parents and as career people?
Well, the first thing I think is to realize that the way you speak to yourself includes more than just the words. It's also the tonality. So if you say something to yourself like, great, really great, Harold, that's really different than if you say, wow, Harold, that's so great. You know, it's a whole effect that comes from both words and the way you say them. Another thing that is extremely simple, but the brain likes it, is to breathe. Most people, when they're upset or they're stressed, exactly, they forget this one simple thing and they start the day at maybe 6:30, or if they overslept 5 minutes, now they're running, and it might be noon before they remember to take a deep breath. So as simple as it sounds, breathing is probably the best tool and technique anyone can learn and practice on a regular basis.
That makes a lot of sense to me because the mind and the body is really a continuum. So it would make sense that breathing would definitely affect the brain and oxygen levels in the brain and all that other stuff that goes along with that, because everything's connected.
Yes, and another thing people don't realize is that our physiology developed when we lived in forests and plains, and if you're upset and stressed out, your body reacts as if you're running from a tiger. Whereas in the modern society, it's really probably that someone annoyed you or didn't show up for an appointment on time. And that leaves a kind of energy in the body. So another thing that's really good is if you're feeling stressed out and you take that breath, and that doesn't quite do it, then it's often good to literally shake out the body. And it seems silly, but if you move that energy out, and you make a sound like, ah.
Ah.
Yes.
Hey, that does feel better.
It does. It releases it. So.
Right. That makes sense to me. That reminds me of something called, isn't there like a primal scream therapy?
Yes, there is, but I think we could call it parental scream therapy a lot of the time.
Right, that makes sense.
But there's a lot that fills in. I mean, you asked about my 15-year-old, and yesterday he left in the pouring rain, got to school. He'd worked very hard on something till 1 a.m. and forgot the notebook he was supposed to bring it in. And so, do you go to be on time for your meeting, or do you run to the Bronx and give your child the notebook that will make the difference in their grade point average? And so, I get to practice what I preach every single day.
Right.
And yes, we did bring him the notebook,
Well, I think you made the right choice there.
The other thing I would say that I think is extremely important is that priorities really help. Knowing what is more important than something else, especially in a pinch.
Right.
So if you know beforehand that, for example, your son, Adam is the most important thing in your life. So when you have two priorities, you're going to choose Adam. But that doesn't, not to say that those other things aren't competing for and require prioritizing. And I think the song Pinwheel really catches how you're trying to fit your parenting into an already very busy life by the time our little people arrive. And it's a lot.
Right. It's kind of like a hamster wheel.
It is a hamster wheel.
So what's the most exciting thing that you're working on right now?
I'm so many. I'm working on a book, tentatively titled "Questions Are the Answer," and that's another piece I would add for parents is that if you really find yourself stressed and you speak to yourself in questions rather than answers, you can often find that you open a universe. And I'm recording an album currently with my band October Project.
That's right.
And we've been performing at some really wonderful venues. We're going to be performing at a conference on gold, and it's every aspect of gold, its origins, the politics of gold, the jewelry of gold.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and then I'm doing a lot of coaching and teaching with extraordinary people, which is pretty much what I have the opportunity to work with. I have a lot of extremely creative and entrepreneurial clients, and especially living in New York City and living in this economy, more and more people are finding various ways to express themselves positively, make a contribution, and flow together a portfolio of careers.
Right. Yeah, I think in this day and age, and with the technologies that are out there, there's lots of different revenue streams and lots of different ways that we can all think about making a career. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I think some of the best things come out of that, when people are actually in a situation where they're challenged to deal with a new economy. I mean, to just deal with a digital economy. And I just finally left my old-fashioned ways and got an iPhone. And, downloading apps could be a full-time job, just learning and discovering what you can do with such a small but incredible device.
Right.
We all have such an opportunity now to let the whole world be our community. And I'm having clients who are, working through social media or creating television shows, putting a lot of really wonderful work into the world, as you guys are. Right. There you are, you're parenting and creating, and, Amelia is so involved in, defining New York City real estate, which is, no easy day job. And yet you create such amazing music at such a high level.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy it. And just so you guys know, Julie's band, the October Project, sold about 500,000 records total in the 90s. They were signed to Epic Records.
And that was at a time when the conventional wisdom was that women don't buy music. And so when we toured with Sarah McLachlan, it sort of defied the industry's idea of what is possible. And I guess that defying of limitations has been very important to me, and I really love people who do that, who say, why not?
A can-do attitude.
A can-do, and why not?
Julie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, too.
We appreciate it very much, and have a great day, everybody.